are going to open the Board of Selectmen's meeting of March 23rd. Bear with me while I read the script that was given to me. This is Monday, March 23rd, 2020, meeting of the Berlin Board of Selectmen. As a preliminary matter, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. This is Christine Keefe, Chair of the Board of Selectmen. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me prior to me calling the meeting to order. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
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 Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lisa Wysocki.
Here.
Peg Stone.
Present.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Margaret Nardowicz.
Here.
Ken Clark.
Here.
Mary Arata.
I know we know she's here.
Mary's here.
She's hosting.
Here.
Okay. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Paul McKelk.
Here.
And that's all I have on the list, but I know there's others. With the quorum of the board present, I call this meeting to order at 7:02. Introduction to the remote meeting. This is open meeting of the Board of Selectmen being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus, specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Berlin website at www.townofberlin.com. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's orders suspend the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, provided reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. While no in-person attendance of meetings of the public is permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. The standard public comment portion of this meeting will accommodate limited public comment. For this meeting, the Board of Selectmen is convening using the Zoom platform as posted on the agenda, identifying how the public may join. Meeting materials. The public is encouraged to follow along during this meeting using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Supporting materials that are available this evening to members of the Board of Selectmen can be made available to the public by request. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite each board member by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Board members and speakers on the agenda, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with each other, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself. The public comment portion of the agenda, to the extent that our technical capabilities allow, public comment will be permitted during the public comment portion of this meeting as follows. Attendees, phones, and other devices will be muted unless and until they raise their hand and are recognized by me to speak. I ask each member of the public who wishes to speak to identify themselves by name, and I will afford each speaker time to ask a question or a brief comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Does everybody understand how to raise their hand on Zoom?
You can also hit Alt-Y, but Mary is the host, so she's going to be the only one seeing that.
So if I could weigh in, everyone should be able to see a bar at the bottom of their screen labeled participants. If you click on, you can't see that on the bottom of your screen.
Move your cursor around.
I'm on an iPad.
Okay.
I'm on a regular
I'll
laptop.
wave in the picture if I need it.
I think
Okay.
if you're in full screen, you're not going to be able to see it either.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well,
Well, should we be in gallery view?
I'm
If
in
you-
gallery.
I'm in gallery too.
well, why don't you just
raise hand?
get our
Just you
our
can-
attention? Raise your hand like this if you need to. If you can't find the raise your hand button.
Janet, didn't you say that there was a Control Y or something like that?
Now, Is Mary Arata still with us?
Yes,
Yes,
she's
she's quiet.
But she can hear us
Okay.
talking, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Because
Oh.
if you, I sent everybody the instructions, Margaret. You can look at them and then figure out for future.
Okay.
It's not my place to speak.
Okay. So we've called the meeting to order. We have announcements. Do we have announcements, Margaret?
there aren't any. Oh, there are plenty of announcements, just not specific
On the
ones.
agenda.
There'll
Yes.
be plenty more to come.
Okay. We have approval of minutes. I believe it's just the March 9th, 2020.
That's the only set of minutes the board's asked to approve.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
And seconded.
Okay. And we need a roll call vote. So that would be Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye. Stone, aye.
Okay. Next is correspondence. The letter of support to the town of Bolton about the Wattaquatic Hill Road truck exclusion. Margaret, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. The town of Bolton asked the town of Berlin to provide a letter of support for the truck exclusion that they are putting in place on Wattaquatic Road, which is right on 117. And due to issues with the way the intersection is set up, it's very, very difficult for trucks to turn, cuts off traffic, it's very dangerous. So they asked us to provide a letter of support, which would require commercial vehicles to follow Route 62 all the way in through Berlin to Clinton. The town of Berlin asked to meet with their DPW director and their engineer to discuss any concerns that we had from our police chief and from our highway superintendent. We did have that meeting recently. And based on that meeting, we were able to fully understand that the truck exclusion, the one truck exclusion that we would want in place on West Street is already an approved MassDOT truck exclusion. And so our police chief and highway superintendent's concerns were satisfied. So those were the only concerns that were expressed, and I would recommend that the board approve this letter of support to the town of Bolton for their truck exclusion.
Okay. Do I hear a motion or
Move.
questions or comments from the board? Lisa?
Motion to approve.
Peg?
No questions and seconded.
Okay. All We'll take a vote then. Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay, motion passes. The next piece of correspondence is the letter to the ABCC regarding the flat penny from Attorney Mears.
Yes.
Margaret, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Through the chair, this is simply a piece of correspondence that we received. This is a letter from the law office of James Mears to ABCC indicating that in the interest of the new Flat Penny LLC, they are filing an appeal of the board's revocation of the license with the ABCC. So that's where we stand at this point, and that's all we have right now.
Okay. I would like to throw out there that for a future agenda, we should have some discussion on their other licenses.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to the general public comment. And are there any comments or questions from the audience?
Peter has a hand up, Chris.
Okay, Peter.
So my question about the flat penny is, does this stay your decision, or is anything change, or your decision stands and business continues as usual?
We still have revoked their license.
The revocation is still effective.
Yes.
They
So are
have the
they-
ability to appeal, and that's what they've done.
Yes.
Is it possible that they might seek a stay from the court, and then we have a larger legal bill and a more complicated mess?
Margaret?
It is possible. It is possible that because they do have the ability to appeal with Superior Court.
I think given the current virus climate, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, there's no other hands that I see up, Chris.
Okay. So we'll move on to our appointment about the coronavirus business updates, and including the joint declaration of emergency between the boards of health and selectmen. Margaret, do you want to speak to this first, or?
Sure. As we all know, the governor declared a state of emergency in Massachusetts on March 10th, and then has subsequently followed up with several orders pertaining to waivers of the requirements of the open meeting law, mandatory reductions of gatherings of individuals in public places, and now, as of today, the closure of non-essential services in the state. We, at the beginning of this emergency, it seems like so long ago, but it was really less than 2 weeks ago that this all began with the declaration of emergency. At the start, well, no municipality was really sure what direction this was going to take. And then over the past 2 weeks, municipalities have started to declare local emergencies. One of the biggest things that a local declared emergency can do, in this case, it may not even be applicable, but one of the provisions with a local declared emergency is that we can avail ourselves of federal FEMA funds should those funds start being directed to cities and towns. So in short, our accountant has already set up a file. We are now allowed to deficit spend certain accounts for the specific purpose of funding issues related to the health emergency. So we are preparing in every other way to address the emergency locally. So my recommendation is that the board and I think the Board of Health has already discussed this, Paul, I think can speak to it. But my recommendation is that the board sign this local declaration of emergency so that we can provide it to the appropriate officials at the state. It can be on record, and we could avail ourselves of potential future funding from FEMA.
Okay, Paul, do you have anything to add?
Yes, that is something that the Board of Health wholeheartedly supports, all three members. It's difficult times and it is an emergency. So we are on board with the declaration.
Okay, have you taken a vote also?
Yes, it was
Okay,
unanimous.
okay.
I'll second it. And unanimous, Bobby.
All right, so
We voted the other night.
Yeah.
do I hear a motion from the board?
So moved. And seconded.
Okay. Do we have any questions before we take a vote?
None.
Okay, then I'll call for a vote. Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye. Stone, aye.
Okay, thank you. And now we have,
Ask the Board of Health to do a roll call vote on camera.
Oh,
They took one in their meeting, didn't they?
Yes,
that's,
we did.
Then I
Yes, we
think they're
did.
probably fine, aren't they?
yes, they're fine.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right, then we're going to move on to our fire and EMS chief, Ken Clark.
Good evening, everybody. As of today, we saw that there was an increase in cases across the state, and also, I think, 5 additional passings from what we're dealing with. I can promise you that the Berlin Fire and EMS and the whole public safety team is poised, ready to respond. I'm not aware of any people who we have to deal directly with in the town of Berlin yet. We haven't had that confirmation call come through the Board of Health. And that we're just dealing with it day to day. Our inventory is good. We did a survey for the DFS and NEMA the end of last week, and at our current use, our inventory that we have on hand, we can go out 4 to 6 weeks and be comfortable.
Okay. Was that 5 additional deaths or just 5 total?
And no, I think there was 5 additional today that I heard.
No, 4 additional
Okay.
deaths, bringing the total to 9 for the state.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
all right. Board, does the board have any questions for Chief Clark?
Bobby Wheeler, I was just, I know that the Neshoba Board of Health will notify us of any cases of known in Berlin. They will notify the chief or the Board of Health if we have any.
Okay,
Yeah,
Just-
that's correct. And the other thing that I asked them today, I sent them the Neshoba an email to also include as a secondary initial contact the dispatch center. So if something came in like at night from 2300 to 05 in the morning and wasn't immediately seen, they'd have access to it, know what the address was, and be able to share it immediately with public safety response personnel so there's no unwarranted exposure.
Terrific.
Very good.
all right. I know I saw that email today too. Is that it for the questions for Chief Clark?
I just have one additional comment. I understand that Shrewsbury is actually opening up, and forgive me if Chief just said this, I was attending to something else, that they're going to be offering testing to first responders and medical personnel in Shrewsbury. So this is a very good thing because we do know that some medical personnel and EMTs, although I think the numbers are minimal still, but I think that there are some that have been, that have tested positive. So this is a really good thing. We want to be able to protect our emergency medical services and all medical personnel to the best of our ability.
Yes. Okay. I think we're going to move on to the National Grid poll hearing. Thank you, Chief Clark, for being here tonight.
Okay, you're welcome. And again, if anyone has any questions, I'm only an email away.
Okay,
Stay safe.
Yep,
yes.
thank
Hi, Chief.
you. Take care, everybody.
Chief, thank you.
Chief.
So I'm going to open the National Grid poll hearing. This is the installation of one singularly owned pole on River
solely
Road
owned.
West. Okay. Oh, okay. To service the Berlin Community Garden. The land is owned by Riverbridge. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this public hearing of the Berlin Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can listen, view, participate in this meeting while in progress by the Zoom meeting. Protocol read out aloud at the outset of this meeting and is posted in the official agenda posting for this meeting. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, by raising their hand in the Zoom meeting platform or by speaking in successive order for those who join telephonically only. So is it Javier? Javier?
Yeah, Javier Morales, National Grid.
Do you have anything to tell us or about this, the poll?
No, it's just 40-foot utility pole that's going to be used for a siphon service, like you mentioned, for the service to garden.
Okay.
That's about it.
Is there any questions from the board? Lisa?
Nope, this is just what they need to get the electricity at the public garden, right?
Yes.
Excuse me, through the chair, can I
Yes.
ask, I don't know, I think I'm getting feedback or some sort of background noise and it's making it hard to hear. If anybody has a TV on or radio or anything, could you please turn it down? Thank you.
Okay. Peg, did you have any questions for Javier?
No, it's pretty standard. I'm good.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience?
Laura has a question.
Laura? you have
Hi.
a Question?
Yeah, representing the Agricultural Commission, who is very involved with the community garden. We're basically just wondering if anybody has any answers on timeline and or cost for this poll.
Margaret, do you have any idea?
I don't have answers, but I would ask Javier if he has an estimate on the cost to install the pole, because I've been asked that same question by Carl of the Ag Commission.
Yeah.
I don't have an estimate, but if you give a call into our customer fulfillment department, I can provide you with the number and the work request number tomorrow when I'm back in the office. They could help you with that if there even is a cost.
And timeline?
We're on a normal schedule. The virus hasn't affected our daily crews.
Okay.
So approximately when?
I don't have that information in front of me, but if you call customer fulfillment, they're charged with providing any construction timelines for customers. They could also help you.
Okay, hopefully I have that number.
I can call in tomorrow during the day and provide it.
Okay, that sounds
I don't
good.
have it right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Motion to approve the poll.
And seconded.
Okay. It's a roll call vote. So Keith, aye.
Misaki, aye.
Stone eye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay. I actually just found the phone number.
Okay,
You guys ready to write this down?
yeah.
Sure.
It's 1-800-375-7405. And you want to ask for
7405?
Yes, that's correct. And you want to ask for Donna Langless.
Oh,
She's
okay, I
your
have her
project
email.
manager.
Okay,
Yeah, you can email it too, same thing.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Javier.
You're welcome.
All right, then now that we've taken a vote, I'm going to close the poll hearing. And we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the Finance Committee and the FY21 budget discussion. Margaret, do you want to speak to this first?
I think I would, I think I'd probably defer to the, to Stan and the Finance Committee first. I think everyone received the memo that we put out from the administrative finance team with updates and recommendations. Clearly, this health emergency has upended what we had been planning for conservative revenue projections, and we are definitely expecting to move in the more conservative direction at this point. But I'll let Stan and FinCom speak to where they're at.
Stan, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, am I on?
You are.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, basically what Margaret said is that we're looking at we have serious concerns about where the revenues are going to be, both pretty much across the board, local receipts and meals tax, and pretty much the whole gambit of revenues are really kind of thrown up in the air on this. And so everything that we had projected up to this point is in question. We've asked Margaret to try to look at some historical information, and prior quarter fours and end of quarter threes, and I think probably none of it's very relevant with what's happening right now. So I'm not even sure that that's the direction that we need to proceed. It's really, I guess basically what we're saying is that it's incredibly difficult right now to come up with a budget. I think that we have done quite a bit of work on the expense side of things. We've had a lot of discussions on the revenue side of things. We were just starting to get to the real nuts and bolts of our votes and our where we were going to start, kind of getting a baseline of where we wanted to be on revenues and what we wanted to use for future growth. And I think that's all a big question mark right now. So I think given the state of things and what we had talked about potentially moving town meeting and all of those things, we wanted to make the board aware of our difficulties right now and make the public aware of our difficulties right now in trying to establish a budget for 2021. And I think we're clearly going to have to use much more conservative numbers. I think we're going to clearly have to look much harder at the expenses that folks have put in for their budgets. I think we were relatively comfortable with a lot of the budgets, and we were doing pretty well to getting to where we needed to be. So I would ask if anyone else on the committee has anything more to add at this point, or should I just keep blurbing on? Burbling.
Janet, do you have anything to add?
Janet, do you want to?
My only concern is our hands are really tied with a lot of the cutting of, I'm just throwing this out there. Should we want to cut something? It's kind of hard to cut something with all of the constraints put on by, you can't cut salary, you can't lay off, you can't, I'm like with Stan, what do we do?
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
So this is Peg. I have a question, and I know it's hardline, and I know it might sound drastic, but Stan, Mike, Mary, Janet, and Margaret, and everybody. Do we just go back to where we were last year? Do we flatline everybody? We take away increases. We take away steps. We reduce expenses to where they were last year. We can't go out and buy things that are shiny and new unless they're really, really needed. I think overtime needs to be seriously looked at. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the coverage, if we reduce overtime, falls to Chief Galvin and Chief Clark and the other salaried people where they need to step up and step in and start to reduce stuff. I just think, I keep remembering the words of, one of our early coffee talks where someone said the selectmen need to grow a set and basically start saying no on spending. And just given where the economy is, given where the virus is, and no one really knows what's going to go on, I just don't think it would be very smart for us to go ahead and approve things that are in the budget now. People have to understand that this is a wide impact on everyone. And as a taxpayer, I don't want to foot the bill for something bright and shiny and new. And you know what? You don't get a raise, you don't get a raise. I've worked in corporate America for far too many years. There's been years we didn't get raises because the company didn't make what they wanted to make. So that's my 12 cents.
Okay, thanks.
You have two hands raised, Paul McKelk, Peter Hoffman.
I would like to speak to as part of the discussion. So through the chair, at some point, I'd like to add some information.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mary. Tell me who has hands up.
Both
Paul.
Peter
Paul.
Hoffman, Paul McKelk, and Michael Ginsburg. Well, Michael, you're a committee
Yeah,
member.
Michael, why don't you give us your 2 cents now?
Well, yeah, it really is just 2 cents. I think that we're obviously going to have to take a look at this, and we will meet on Wednesday. Stan,
Yes.
shake your head. Okay.
Yes,
Hopefully
yes,
everybody.
you are correct, sir.
It is posted. I set up a web another Zoom meeting. It is posted in the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we will certainly have to. We will be getting together Wednesday, and we will now focus our talks on,
Yeah,
you know,
where do we
moving
need to
forward
be?
in light of where we are at with everything.
Okay, Mary Porter, did you have anything to add?
Sure, I don't have a hand up, but in the materials Margaret sent over, they've been very helpful, and I've been looking at what the Commonwealth is proposing, and I think I'm hopeful, and I think Margaret and the administrative finance team is on this, that if we have a postponement in town meeting, it gives the finance committee another period of time to work on these numbers, and it occurred to me thinking about it, you know, just now, that if we have a target where we think our revenues might drop in fiscal 21, let's say they drop 20% or 30%, then we can actually take numbers that we have in the budget that's built to date and see where we can do that. And of course, I hear Peg's comment, and it's a reasonable one. And no, we don't want to take any money from taxpayers that isn't essential to delivering services to the town. So, but I do think that if we have that additional time, it also lets us see how things develop in this crisis. And then the final thing, I don't know whether Stan or Margaret, if you had a chance to talk to the people from the school board on last Friday. I don't know if there was anything that, whether it was a conversation at all, but I'm mindful that the school board budget was summarized in the Clinton item.
Yeah, Chris, if I may.
Oh, please.
Stan?
Yeah, so yes, Margaret and I did speak to the school board. It seemed like FY20 would probably not incur additional costs. They are not expecting to have an increase in cost based on, internet study, studying by telecom, however you want to put it, online studying as opposed to in person, not really realizing a bunch of savings from reduction in facility, but clearly paying staff through the end of the year, but seriously concerned about FY21. I think predominantly the busing, I would say, was what I had a takeaway of, is probably one of their strongest concerns, given that they will be, since they can't pay for services that we haven't received, the school board will not be paying for bus service for the balance of this year, or at least the balance of the time that we're not in school. So that's a concern to them, that the bus company may not be financially solvent if that's the case. And what happens in the fall when we're saying, okay, let's go back to school, and the bus company says, well, we don't have any buses anymore because we had to turn them all back in because they were foreclosed upon. So that's a concern of theirs. It's not something they're saying is imminent, but it's definitely a concern, and did not foresee huge changes in FY21 based on the current situation. So, I mean, I think that was probably my biggest takeaway. Margaret, I don't know if you had anything further, but I think that was what I saw as far as budgetary concerns. I mean, there's clearly other concerns that the school has, but budgetary concerns, I think that was probably the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
that
no?
was major. And
Is there any?
through
Yes. Do you want to speak now, Margaret? And then I can get to the others. You're dying
Yes,
to. I
through
can
the
tell.
chair. Well, tying into what Stan said about the transportation, they have a contract for transportation. Now, keep in mind, transportation is not operating right now. So the school's in a little bit of a predicament. No, they're in a predicament here with regard to an active contract where contract services aren't currently being provided. So they're looking at every way possible to be able to maintain the services in the contract for the entire contract period, making sure that the bus company, for example, doesn't go out of business, that they don't lay off people. So when school does go back into session, they'd be able to actually transport kids. So this is actually a significant dilemma that the school is facing. That kind of ties into last week, I submitted written testimony to our legislators regarding some town-focused things. One of those is that we too have municipal contracts for goods and services, some of which may or may not be used through this entire public health emergency. So what I asked in the written testimony is that the legislature include provisions in the emergency legislation giving towns flexibility to exercise force majeure provisions or to restructure contracts so that they work for the town and we're not incurring obligations for contract services that we're not receiving. So I did ask that. To the Finance Committee's point on town meetings, I have reached out to our moderator. The emergency legislation, or the bill that was filed by Charlie Baker for the emergency legislation, would allow the town moderator, after consulting with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health and Public Safety officials, to declare a 30-day postponement of town meeting. I think a lot of towns are going to be exercising this option because no town knows what the future is going to bring. And every week that we move forward in this whole health crisis is 1 week closer to where we might be able to more reasonably project conservative revenues. We just found out after I sent the memo last week from the administrative finance team with updates and recommendations, we found out that the state's meals and rooms tax obligations have been waived. They're actually being deferred indefinitely. That means not only will we see a 20 to 30% reduction in meals and rooms tax, we might see nothing in the next quarter, nothing in those taxes. So it is really up in the air. The good news in all of this is, as of the Finance Committee's last meeting, the town did have a 116,000 plus revenue surplus that will be able, if the Finance Committee so chooses, it will be able to be reallocated to some of those local receipts lines and projected revenues lines that we know are going to be taking, or we expect are going to be taking some hits in this health crisis. I also think that Peg's comments on level funding the budget makes a great deal of sense, at least on an interim basis. If we have to go to town meeting and we have to make some decisions, to level fund at least on an interim basis makes sense until we have a better understanding of what our revenues are going to look like moving forward. Our other alternative, if we cannot, if the board chooses to defer town meeting, the Board of Selectmen has the ability in the legislation to defer town meeting till after June 30th, which is a waiver of state law. We would be able to operate on a 1/12 budget, similar to what the schools would do if they didn't have an approved budget. We do not want to go there because of all the tracking of revenue expenses that requires. But if necessary, we would have that option, and that would have the same effect as a level funded budget because we could only spend at last year's levels. And I think that's all I have to say at the moment.
Okay, was there anyone else with a hand up?
Peter, I thought, had his hand up.
Paul
Peter, did you-
McGill's got his hand up too.
Hi, everyone. So a couple of things. I'll start with the negative news and go to the more positive news. In between EDC meetings, I've checked in with Jed Hayes, who's the principal at Highland Commons via Paul Anderson, and I personally spoke with the mall manager at Solomon Pond. So Jed says that more or less, now this is before today's declaration, that things are full speed ahead at Highland Commons, and so that's the good news. Obviously, Solomon Pond is closed, Simon is closed nationwide. That's very bad news. I mean, it wasn't like they were rocking it before, but now it's gone from bad to worse. So I couldn't agree with the sentiment to flatline the budget, if not consider a doomsday scenario. I think that we need to prepare the public by way of the select board that it could be ugly. And if it's ugly, there's two choices: cut or increase taxes. And I'm sure nobody wants either, but if we've got to cut, we've got to cut. And that's beyond my pay grade. So that's the negative news. The more positive news is some of you know that I've been a FEMA reservist for decades. And I've been on the public assistance side. That's public assistance is not human beings. It's towns, counties, states, and nonprofits. Individual assistants are individuals, people. And I've been a housing inspector for a long time. Someone smarter than me probably should look into considering a line item for possible revenue that we might pick up from the disaster declaration of both the state and the now the town, because the president has declared the country a national disaster or federal disaster for this purpose. And if we can pick up some money, or at least attempt to pick up some money and make some assumptions, which again, I don't know where to start, that probably would be valuable. And probably Ken Clark can opine on this because he's got to have plenty of FEMA experience himself from other relief he sought for Hopkinton. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
I have.
Paul, did you want to speak?
He's muted.
Doesn't look like he's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Relative to the budget, FinCom's aware of some of the predicament the town is in relative to solid waste and recycling. But to take advantage of this more public forum, there are a lot of things going on with recycling and trash removal that are just totally out of our hands. Cannot be flatlined unless we want to close the transfer station, which would be a serious health issue. The recycling issues really originated with China shutting down approximately a year ago because the quality of product coming from the US wasn't up to their, I'm going to say, new standards. Trash disposal has increased considerably. And if the conversation or question of contracts comes up, that's all well and good. But in the state of Massachusetts, when it comes to recycling and trash, there's a, well, it's more than a gray area. That whole industry has been somewhat immune to the legal ramifications of maintaining and holding a contract price, because the whole disposal industry has been in flux, frankly, for, in my knowledge, 40 years. The last time I've seen any such increase that we are now experiencing was approximately 35 years ago. And yes, I'm dating myself, but I was there, I'm there today. It's unfortunate. It's not surprising to me. The DEP does not license any new disposal facilities within the state of Massachusetts. So material has to go further out of state, New York, Pennsylvania. There are no new burn facilities being constructed. We really have no options, and we are at the whim of, what I will say, the whim of the industry in what's available and what's not available. And in the past, the Board of Health has tried to generate probably in the vicinity of 80% of our municipal costs for trash and recycling. And we had to give a good hard look at this coming year because our trash disposal has gone from $86 to $110 a ton. Recycling has gone from 20 to 100, just to throw out a couple numbers. And it's really like the Wild West. We've reviewed our fees, transfer station sticker prices, and we've come up with numbers that would still come in somewhere around of covering about 80% of our overall costs, so that the remaining gets covered by the tax base. And there is no good news. That's what the news is.
Is the Finance Committee, I'm sure, is aware of this?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good.
And correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on FinCom, I may have given a little more detail right now than we have in our meetings, but I believe they are aware.
Yes.
Yes.
I just think right now we don't know enough about anything, and we need time to figure it out. So we could talk about this all night, but I don't think it's going to get us anywhere because we really need the time to figure out which direction we need to go, and FinCom needs that time.
The only point I'm making is relative to Peg's earlier comment about flatlining.
Yep, but we aren't even to where we just don't know enough now. So we should probably move on for this evening.
Fine. If I could just finish my statement, flatlining does not seem to be an option, period.
Thank you.
Well, I think
is the FinCom have anything else they want to add, or Margaret?
I just wanted to say, I think we all understood at the FinCom meeting that the contract for disposing our trash has increased, and there, unfortunately, that's one area we're going to have to really look at because we need to get rid of our trash. And I don't know, I mean, that might be one of the areas that we have to say, okay, we need to look at this seriously, because what else are we going to do? We can't let the trash sit there. People can't keep it at their houses. So I know Sue was very scrubbing numbers left and right and coming up with the best case scenario. And I think Mike and Stan and Mary will agree with me. We are all aware that that is an area that we really have no control over, is our waste management.
Yeah, and a lot of the budget is like that, frankly. Yeah. You know, a lot of it we just don't have a choice on, so.
Okay, Margaret, you got your hand up.
I do. I just on the matter of trash and the transfer station. To date, we have increased the offset receipts for that by $22,000 over last year to help recoup some of that cost on the budget. So we are looking at more coming in offset receipts for that, although the expense line is also going up accordingly, as Paul noted.
Yeah.
To respond, I appreciate what Peter said about the FEMA monies coming in. So what would have to happen with the municipality is that it must receive those reimbursements as general fund receipts. We can certainly receive those, but we are likely to see those receipts being I don't want to say turned over, turning into free cash for the following fiscal year. Just to note, though, I think I mentioned this earlier, we are now, under this declared emergency, we are now allowed to spend expense lines in excess of appropriation. That's in the current year. That's happening now because we are in a declared emergency. We have not yet expended money other than setting up this Zoom remote meeting process. We have not spent any kind of significant funds on emergency expenditures to date. That doesn't mean we won't, but we haven't yet. We do have a process internally with accounting that we will be noting all invoices going through accounting as C-19 if the invoices are going through for expenses related to this emergency. That way we can track everything. And Peter, you know as well as anyone, if you are a FEMA rep, that we have to cross our T's and dot our I's with FEMA paperwork. I have experienced in other communities after natural disasters that it can take several months, if not years, to receive FEMA reimbursements. Chief, I know that you could probably speak to this as well, but it can take a significant amount of time to see those monies come back to us. But we'll be working on submitting for reimbursement when the time comes.
I think probably it's a good idea that the Finance Committee, with Margaret's help too, get as much time as they can. You know, and if it means postponing the town meeting, that would probably be helpful. I think we're just going to need some time to take a look at this. I wouldn't want to jump into anything.
I've contacted Barry and hopefully I have a chance to talk with him in person. So I've sent him all the materials that the Board and Finance Committee have gotten. And Mary, I would ask if you could please put the memo from the Administrative Finance team somewhere up on our website so that it could be accessible to the public so they know the situation we're facing. Thank you.
Okay. I know that the Planning Board has sort of deferred this evening. So I believe we're down to the Town Administrator report.
Through the chair, I'd like to know how you want me to handle this one. This is actually a special report, all pertaining to COVID-19. I don't know if you want me to just kind of give a synopsis. And this is going to be posted on the website. But what this does is it assures our residents that we are here for them, that we will be responsive to them, that our essential operations are going to continue to run. We do recognize the governor's order today about non-essential services, and the board will take that up under new business. I'll be presenting a recommendation on that. I also say in my town report, please look at our website for important information and updates. We do have links to CDC. We do have links to Mass DPH. We do have Board of Health information. And I'm very thankful to our volunteers at the Berlin Food Pantry who put together a COVID-19 basic needs information sheet that is also up on our website now. In my town report, I emphasize that we are here. I give numbers for the Board of Selectmen's office and my office. If anyone is in need and they need assistance, they should call us because we can make those connections. I also note in my town report that there is going to be an increase in need for volunteers, whether it's to deliver meals to the elderly through Meals on Wheels or to join our regional MRC for eventual testing that we're likely going to see here, testing sites that we'll likely see here. And finally, in my report, I just remind people of all the prevention measures they should be taking, whether it's COVID-19 or another virus. They should be doing their best to try to maintain, the general hygiene things to be able to try to prevent themselves and their families from getting sick. So I guess I would direct people to my town report online for all of that. Thank you.
And that would be at townofberlin.com/town administrator. Check it out. I thought it was very good.
Thank you.
Janet, did you have a question? Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wondered if also on the town website, because I've been so busy with my own work between CDC and DPH and other Board of Health I've been dealing with, is all that information also on the website, Margaret, for people to look for? Because you know what is most important right now is that people are getting accurate, current information, because it is just crazy out there. I don't know how else to say it.
Janet, your point is so well taken. And I know that Paul and our Board of Health would want to weigh in on this too. Facts are so extremely important. We have had, I mean, the rumors are swirling so quickly, and they can actually change the course of how we have to operate on a daily basis just because of hearsay. People need to rely on facts. So we're trying very hard to keep everything factual and up to date.
And it's changing by the minute, because when this all started 30 days ago, all my information from CDC and DPH was social distancing, stay home if you're sick, and wash your hands. And that's what I shared with all my staff. And now we're in this, you know, I would not be surprised if, you know, things, well, they're going to get worse before they get better. They've anticipated our peak to be in 45 days from March 9th, which brings us to April 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I just think every day I'm asking questions, answering questions, and I just think we need to keep them, you know, refer them to the reputable sites, CDC, CPH, and try to. So that was my question: is it on our website for the townspeople?
We have the link to CDC and DPH, and I really appreciate those comments, because we are living that. We're trying to keep it real, so to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. And I think Mary and Margaret are doing a pretty good job of keeping it up to date. Okay, should we move on to old business? Vote to include articles for 2020 annual town meeting.
You can tell this agenda was developed prior to the
like last Thursday.
Yeah. So I do not have any recommendations for articles to include in the annual town meeting warrant. In fact, your cancellation of the planning board's meeting tonight kind of leads me to say that the planning board has not met, but I think there is sentiment that all non-essential articles on the town meeting warrant could in fact wait to a future special town meeting or to a delayed town meeting to give us time to actually work on the budget matter. So I don't have any additional articles to include tonight.
Okay. The next thing is draft FY21 budget.
As much as we would have liked continuing and getting much closer to finishing the board's approvals, we are on hold at the moment. I'm going to wait till FinCom's meeting this week. We can discuss it. We can talk about the revenue projections. We can make more conservative revenue projections, and then deal with the budget lines from there.
Okay, thanks, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
So we have under new business 3 special events applications that have been filed. It would be for Jake's Sake, the 5K road run, which is May 1st, Bicycles Battling Cancer, June 14th, and Charles River Wheelers Bike Tour Group for 2 dates, May 10th and October 11th, with rain dates. And I assume all of the people who have vetted this have done so.
Yes.
Does the board have any questions before I ask for a vote?
Nope, as long as public safety and everybody's weighed in.
Yep.
I would recommend that the board's vote be contingent on the approval of the Berlin Police Department prior to the events, and of course the lifting of the declaration of emergency, because
Thank you for adding that. It was going to be my concern as well.
Yep.
Yes, that's what I was going to say too. It's just So I will make the motion to approve contingent upon both on approval of the Berlin Police Department a week before the respective events and the lifting of the declaration of emergency proclamations of both the governor and the town of Berlin, if so voted.
Second.
Wysocki?
Wysocki seconded. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll call for a vote. Keefe, aye.
Wysocki, aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay. It is a vote.
Through the chair.
Yes.
May I? I have a new business item that wasn't anticipated within 48 hours of this meeting because the governor only declared issued this order today. With respect to essential services versus non-essential services, the governor's press conference this morning seemed to present this as an advisory. However, when we looked at the document that was generated from the press conference, it's actually an order. And so I have provided the board a draft document asking for the board's approval on a very temporary basis and just during this declared coronavirus health emergency that the board consider allowing non-essential personnel to be able to work remotely from home during specified hours and according to specified schedules. We do know that real estate tax bills are going out next week, and some otherwise non-essential personnel will have to be here stuffing envelopes. So I want to make clear that according to the guidelines or the exhibit that was attached to the governor's order, the positions that are considered essential include all law enforcement, public safety or first responders, public works employees, including highway and transfer station employees and inspectors. And in addition to those, I would add the town administrator, the accountant, and the treasurer collector, because we have a legal obligation to pay our bills and make our payroll. Otherwise, I would ask the board's consideration to allow other employees to be able to work remotely under the guidelines that would be provided by the town.
Lisa, have you had a chance to read the policy that Margaret put together this afternoon? Okay. Are you okay with it?
I am. I think we need to do whatever we can to keep people home, working, and safe.
And Peg, did you have a chance to read the policy this afternoon?
I did. I mean, in Margaret we trust, but, you know, I was going to ask if Margaret, in the event, and I'm not even going to say it, but do we just appoint one of the selectmen, kind of like as a backup Margaret? And I'm thinking,
oh God,
you know,
yeah.
Lisa kind of incapacitated and, you know, foot up, and where I work during the day, that Chris, maybe we shift this burden onto you, that you become, you know, like Margaret 2.0 in case she is out of touch and we need someone to help guide it.
I think that, I'm sorry, if through the chair,
Go ahead.
if I could weigh in, I think that is a reasonable contingency. I don't expect to get sick. I don't expect to be out, but I think it's always good to have a backup plan.
Okay.
And if there's a board member who would be willing to be delegated, that's great.
Yeah, I think we would just go back to operating. I mean, Margaret's only been here since July. It's not like we don't know how to, we don't like operating without Margaret, but it's not like we don't know how to operate without Margaret.
Well, would there be any kind of a special need for, say, you know, you're unable to get to the office for whatever reason, or just something menial? Is that basically what you're talking about?
I'm really only, I'm thinking in terms of this emergency, and I'm thinking in terms of potentially becoming ill. I don't see myself having, we do have provisions in the Board of Selectmen Town Administrator Act for backfill in my absence for other reasons. So I think if we, the act could prevail. But in this particular case, I think they're, you know, having a backup plan where things would just remain operations would remain, I think, that would be great. I would do whatever I could remotely, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, I don't mind, I don't mind being a backup person. I would most of the time defer to you anyway.
It's, yeah, I have no intention of being out. I know things can happen, but I think it's good to just kind of have it on our radar, just in case.
Okay. Where do you want to go with this, board?
I don't think we need to do anything special at this point.
Okay.
I really don't. You're the chair, so I mean, automatically you would still be setting the agenda. You would still be.
Yeah.
I don't think it would just be the coordination piece of it would go back to being difficult as it was before. But I think, like I said, we've done this. We know how to do this.
But we don't like it as well as we do.
We don't like it as well as we like it now. It's much better now.
Well, the only reason that I brought it up is that in watching the bevy of emails this morning where Margaret was sending people down to Chief Galvin to have their picture taken for whatever badge or whatever. I don't know what's needed, but just thinking, yes, the three of us can operate on our own, but if somebody needs to go somewhere and there is a travel restriction, that, Chris goes down and gets her badge taken and that she guides us from there.
Peg has got a good point, because I've already forgotten about this morning. It's like ancient history, but yes, I did actually request credentials to make sure that all essential personnel have credentials in case there was a true stay-at-home order. We could still be able to go back and forth to the office and do what we need to do to keep business moving.
It could be that it's in Clinton, the shelter in place. So I'll leave it up to if there's a motion on the floor or a second. If not, we'll move on.
Well, I'm going to make a motion to make Chris go down and get badged, just in case.
Okay. I guess I will second that motion. So why don't we take a vote?
Yeah, I think it's completely unnecessary, but if you want a badge, that's fine.
Thanks, Lisa. All right. Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone eye. Smile pretty for the camera, Chris.
Yeah.
I just want to, this is Janet. There are multiple hands up, and I don't know if this is an area where we can ask questions or not. I am not one. I just see all the hands going up.
Is it relevant? Is it relevant to, if it is, keep your hand up and I'll call on you if it's relevant to what we're talking about. Bob?
Yes. I just, Board of Health has badges already. That's not a big deal. We just want to be able to coordinate with the fire chief, who is our NEMA, our emergency management. And if we have to coordinate between us with Paul and Susan, anything, we'd just like to be able to do that, I think. That's,
Okay.
I think,
Thanks, Bob.
yeah.
Janet, did you have your hand up or you just? Oh, nope. Okay. Peter, did you have your hand up? Mary?
I did.
Okay.
So it's somewhat moot because you've already voted, but it would strike me as making a bit more sense, no offense to you, Chris, if Mary was that backup person. Mary glues this town together in so many ways. I'm sure she wants to be backup, but like she wants a hole in her head, but she does know a lot about the town and glues us all together. So given a choice, I would suggest that Mary become the victim. I mean, the helper.
Yeah, but Mary can't sign things. She can't do any of those things. She would still be the person who's taking the calls and all of those types of things, but she can't actually sign things and do the things that Margaret does in that respect.
Can Margaret sign things that Mary cannot?
Yes.
Yes, I do. I do have authority under the act to do various things.
Okay,
So
so-
if I could, I think nothing's gonna happen to me, okay? That's famous last words.
I
I'm here.
love
I'm
your
here.
optimism there.
I'm here. See, I'm actually, camping out in the office. So we'll be okay. We do have, where the board has just voted by roll call to have Chris as a backup. I rely heavily on Mary. Mary would definitely be available, albeit maybe remotely, to help and to do things. She's an incredible support. So I think that you guys have a basic structure you'd need to keep things rolling.
So I'm going to go back to the policy that Margaret drafted this afternoon. And if the board doesn't have any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay. Before I call for a vote, I'm just going to tell you, Margaret, there's like 2 typos and I can send them to you.
Okay, that's totally fine. I'll accept those.
Yeah,
That's fine. Yep.
It's nothing that changes anything.
It was the fast typing.
Yes, I know. All right. So we'll take a vote and I'll say Keefe, aye.
Wysocki, aye.
Stone eye.
Okay. Board's questions and comments. And I'm not looking at you.
Yeah, I know you're not looking at me. Whatever. You see, you can't ignore me. You got to look at me face to face instead of looking over to your right. This is kind of piggybacking on Margaret's comment about Meals on Wheels. Over the weekend, Peter Hoffman had put a little blurb out on Berlin Neighbors Connect. Again, I know it's not the official town information, but I have a feeling that more people go there than to the town of Berlin website, just to offer a hand, to say, people in Berlin are proud. And sometimes asking for help is not an easy thing to do, especially in public. So he offered his name. I put in my email as well. I also posted on Berlin Residents United. Peggy Sardell got back to me and wanted me to tell you, so I'm going to look at my other screen so I don't say something incorrectly, that the Meals on Wheels program has been opened up to any senior who would like to receive delivery of cooked meals with no qualifications, except that it be for someone age 60 or over. So if anyone can't do their own shopping, doesn't feel up to cooking, or just wants a friendly face a couple of times a week, they're eligible. So I ask you to reach out to the Council on Aging for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other?
I just had a quick one. We also got an email from Wheat today. They are still up and operational, and obviously taking donations. For every $1 that you donate, they can use it for $4. So if you're thinking about donating, that's another good option. And if you need assistance in that area, that is also another good option.
Thank you. Seeing as how we are going to defer the executive session to approve executive session minutes, I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Agreed. Seconded.
Okay. All in favor? Keefe, aye.
Wysocki, aye.
Stone eye.
Post-meeting comment, I just want to thank Peg, Mary, and Brittany and Chris, all for their work in getting this up and running in 2 business days. Good job. Good job. And Peter, if you can hear me, I'm going to be working on instructions tomorrow, and we'll be talking about access for boards and committees.
I want to thank everybody for a great meeting.
Everybody stay healthy.
Yes, please do.
And keep your chins up, because it's not easy right now.
We're all in this